Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, May 26, 2017, and this is episode 19. My name is Carol and I'm known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog at astitchintime.blogspot.ca, or you can find them in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. And the Ravelry group can be found by searching A Stitch in Time podcast under the Groups tab. Please come by, join in the conversation, or if you like, you can take part in our very informal Agatha Christie along, which is a knit and crochet along that is running for as long as it takes me to read my way through my Agatha Christie collection in order of publication. I think I just finished book 17, so there's still a ways to go. Rules are very simple. Knit or crochet, anything Agatha Christie related, whether it be a pattern inspired by one of the book titles, a character, or Agatha Christie herself. If you can find a way to tie it to Agatha Christie, that works for me. The main purpose of the knit along is just to have a place for some conversation and of course to admire each other's knitting, because that's what Ravelry is all about. Before I go any further, we were away at our family cabin over the weekend and kind of out of touch with civilization for a few days. And very sadly, the first thing that we learned about as we turned on the radio on our way home was the terrorist bombing that had taken place in Manchester. And I just wanted to take a moment to just say my heart goes out to all of the victims and all the people of the UK. What a horrific incident, and there are no words to describe how terrible it is. I know that there are some members in our group from there and who watch the podcast, and just want to know that you are in my thoughts, and just hope for a world where these things don't happen. It's such a sad statement on humanity. But I think we have to remember there are more good people than bad out there. I truly believe that, and we just have to stay positive and do what we can to make the world a better place. It starts at home, doesn't it? Be nice to people, treat them how you would like to be treated yourself. It is such a simple concept, but a lot of people have a tough time with it. So stay positive and be good to each other. Good thing we have some good things in our lives that can detract us from some of the less pleasant things in this world, and of course one of those things is knitting. So let's get to the knitting. This week I am going to talk about a few of my works in progress, and I will talk about something I've decided to frog, so we'll have a frog upon segment. Talk a little bit about what I'm reading, and quite a bit actually about my week, because it's been quite a full one. So let's start with what I'm working on. So you've seen all these projects before. My first is my Apple Blossom Socks by Helen Stewart. I'm calling them my Lilacs in Bloom sock just because the colors are more suited to lilacs. And as of last week, I had finished this sock, and I don't think I had cast on the second one, but I did do that once I got home. I took it up with me to the cabin, and I actually did not knit a stitch for 3 days. I knit in the car on the way there and the way back, and I did not even touch my knitting while I was there. But I have done this since I got home. So I cast on the second sock, and I have just finished turning the heel, and I've done just a few rows after the gusset. So these I want to be done by the end of the month. They're for the Grocery Girls May sock bash. So I'm going to concentrate on these over the next few days so I can get those wrapped up. Come bring in maybe a little closer in so you can see. And the yarn is, here it is in yarn form. And it's the Crafts Meow Ice Cream Sundae in the green tea fusion colorway, but I don't think this dyer's dyeing anymore. But I'm very pleased with how they're working up. And I have to say what a very apropos color to be working on right now. As we drove up to the cabin for quite a ways, we saw a lot of lilacs in bloom. The light purple, the white, the dark purple. It's amazing what a difference 2 weeks makes. We were up there 2 weeks ago and none of these flowers were blooming then, and it was just a gorgeous drive up. We had lovely, lovely weather, and so that's allowed these to bloom, all the flowers to bloom. And also we have wild dogwoods here in British Columbia. In fact, it's our provincial flower. And the dogwoods were also in bloom this past weekend as we drove up. So, and then there's these little purple flowers that bloom along the side of the hills, also on the way up. So it was just a lovely drive, all these flowers blooming. So anyway, looking forward to finishing these up and figuring out what to do for June's sock bash. Right, haven't really given it any thought yet, so it's always fun to go stash diving and see what I can come up with. So as I mentioned, I knit in the car on the way there and the way back, and I managed to put in quite a good dent into my, what I'm calling my blue tit socks, because these ones are for me. I had made a pair for my daughter, and this pair is for me. So I think last week, I was somewhere around here. So I got quite a bit done. I added the first heel in as I was driving home on the first sock. And then Wednesday night, we realized that Survivor was 3 hours long. We'd forgotten or didn't realize it was the season finale. And so I got quite a bit more knitting done there because I worked on these while I was watching that and then another show. So these are well on their way. The yarn for those is the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. And the patterned yarn is color 818 Blue Tit. And then this yellow. My ball band came off and my skein has kind of exploded, so I'm going to rewind that into a yarn cake. Anyway, same yarn, and the color is 240 Butterscotch. So yeah, those are well on their way. I should be able to finish them up, hopefully this week. Just some water this week. I've had about 3 cups of tea this morning, and I think that's plenty. The next project I'm working on is the Fairy Hill Shawl by Helen Stewart. That's it in its 2-color version. That's the first shawl in the Shawl Society 2 collection. So I am knitting it out of this beautiful merino silk yarn. And that yarn is by Sweater Maker Yarns. Oops. And it's called Fiona. And this is dyed by an indie dyer on Vancouver Island, which is where I bought the yarn. For those who don't know, I live in the Fraser Valley, which is of British Columbia, which is about 60 miles, 100 kilometers east of Vancouver. And it's a beautiful spot to live. We're surrounded, absolutely surrounded by mountains. It's gorgeous. So I have put, when I spoke to you last week, I had reached the 50% portion of the pattern, but I had only used 35% of my yarn. So I decided to add on as many repeats of this initial lace pattern as it took to get to 50% of my yarn, and then I'll proceed with the pattern as written. And that turned out to be 3 extra repeats. So I've finished that actually this morning. I've sorry, just a bit tangled here. I've transferred my shawl onto a much longer needle. This was, so this actually will go this way. So it's coming along. I'm just going to spread it out a bit. So it has beautiful, beautiful pastel-y shades, pinks and purples, yellow, blue. And so yeah, I've been working on this lace pattern here, and then now what looks like what happens is that these little lace repeats are knit closer together before switching to a different lace pattern for the edging. So I'm anxious to get going on that just to see a change. But yeah, that's really coming along. You can see it's quite long now. But because the yarn is so fine, I think I'll still be able to wear the shawl as a scarf, which is how I like to wear most of my shawls, even though it'll be a larger size than I would normally knit for that. So that's it for the knitting. When you don't knit for 3 days, you don't get a lot done, as I'm finding out. And I didn't do any sewing or cross stitch or anything this week. The next segment is the frog pond. I've been giving some thought to my So Faded sweater and have concluded that this is how far I've gotten. And I had sort of some second thoughts about it right from the get-go, as when I added this yarn in and wasn't sure what yarn to put in next, etc., etc. I'm going to frog this and get it off my shoulders and off my conscience. I will put this yarn to better use. I actually have some ideas for this one. The yarn, incidentally, Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock in this one, Anthem, and then I think this one was Bitten, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, you're not going to see this one anymore. It's been languishing since I got this far. It's been languishing for a few weeks, and it's time for it to go. So I've actually already stolen the needle tips for a different project. So the cord is all ready to go anyway. So there we go. That is officially now begun to be frogged. So I will take it apart. The yarn is going to need a good soak. Unfortunately, these skeins are in a couple of, I think I'm going to end up with like two balls of this one, and I think about 3 of this. Oh, yeah, I guess two of this one. But that's okay. I can join them in together whenever I work with them again. But yeah, this one, done like dinner. Okay, so that felt really good because it's been on my mind, and I keep thinking, should I or shouldn't I? And there, decision made. Let's move on to what I'm reading. I finished 13 at Dinner by Agatha Christie. I finished that Monday night up at the cabin, and I kind of made myself stay awake long enough to finish it. Of course, I wanted to know who done it, and was ready to move on to something else. So, very basic plot. A woman is seen at her estranged husband's house right around the time that he was killed, and she is assumed to have done it, especially since she basically said in public that she was going to do it or would be happy if it happened. And then the only hitch is that she was seen was having dinner across town at the time with 12 other people. So as usual, lots of suspects involved and various kind of red herrings. And in the end, a satisfying ending, except it just seems to be like how many people can be in the vicinity of the murder at around the same time, and typical Agatha Christie. That's just how they are. They don't want to make it too easy for you to guess. So yeah, satisfying ending, I would say. And before I move on to the next one, I think it's Murder on the Orient Express. I'm taking a break from Agatha Christie, and I've started a new book, totally different genre. This one is called Mississippi Blood by Greg Iles. It's on my Kindle, so I can't show you the cover. Greg Iles is an author that my husband and I were introduced to a few years ago by his brother and his brother's wife. And this was the first book. I think they lent it to us at the time, and we read it and we were hooked and have read basically everything this author has written. He is based in Natchez and Mississippi, and a lot of his books takes place in that region that is deep south there, New Orleans, Natchez. A lot of them are Natchez, I guess because it's a place he knows well. And this particular book is about a kidnapping that takes this group of people, kidnap a child every year around the same time, hold them for 24 hours to get the ransom money, and then release the child. And so this time, the child has a medical complication that they were not aware of, which makes it a much riskier event for them. That's not the right word. Can't think of it right now. So this book is, one of those edge of your seat thrillers, and that's what a lot of his books are like. So this particular one that I'm reading now, Mississippi Blood, is part of a series involving a character called Penn Cage, who was a lawyer. It is now the mayor of Natchez, Mississippi, and his father has been accused of murdering his ex-employee. His father was a doctor and had a nurse years before in the 60s, and this nurse was very ill, and he was accused of helping her with a doctor-assisted suicide, which was illegal. And tied up in all this also is this group of ex-Klan members who were apparently involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And these stories are all intertwined and full of lots of adventure and bloodshed and intrigue. Much less tame than an Agatha Christie story, but very entertaining. And I know that usually once I start reading one of these books, I don't want to put it down. So I have a feeling I'll get through it pretty quickly. So if you like those kind of stories, Greg Iles as an author, I definitely recommend. I'll actually have a fair bit of time this weekend to indulge in my hobbies of all sorts. My husband's away again for a few days. He left early this morning. He's not back till late Sunday afternoon or early evening. So especially because it's the weekend, I don't have a lot of, housework kind of jobs to do or anything else. So I plan to take it quite easy. And the problem is I'm kind of overwhelmed by choice. I can knit, I can sew, I can cross stitch, I can read. So I suspect I'm probably going to go from one to another, and it sounds like the perfect weekend to me. I'm contemplating quite often when my husband's away, I'll order in Indian food because he doesn't really like it and I love it. So I suspect I will do some takeout tonight, and that'll do me for a couple meals. And my son gave me a nice bottle of wine for Mother's Day, so I plan to have a lovely dinner with some wine and just a very relaxing weekend. So that's what's coming up. And I believe the next clue for the Sugarcane Cardigan by Carol Feller is being released tomorrow. So I'm finished the first part, so I'm looking forward to getting started on the second one. I guess I should talk a little bit about last weekend. As I mentioned, we went up to our family property. It's in the Caribou region of BC, for those who are familiar with that area. And it's family property with 4 cabins on it, one for each of my dad and his siblings. And my dad's brother passed away last year, and his family decided that they didn't want to, they weren't going to use it. And so our family, my mom, she bought out his share of the property, and we've taken on the responsibility for that other cabin and just plan to use it as an overflow cabin for our family and for any other of my relatives that are up there. So that transfer of property took place late last summer, and so this year we're giving it a bit of a cleanup and a bit of a makeover, and because the family had taken some mementos and some furniture and such from there. So it kind of needed a tidying up. So 2 of my brothers-in-law installed some new linoleum in the 2 bedrooms, which really brightened it up. I had been sewing curtains for it, as if you've been watching the last couple of weeks. So curtains and valances. So those got hung up this weekend and gave the windows a good wash inside and out. So that really brightened up the place. And my mom had picked up a new sofa bed and a new armchair, so we put those in and relocated some of the pictures that they had left behind. And then my mom had framed up a bunch of family photos, so we put those up in the main room. And it was just amazing, just very simple things like that have really opened up the main room. It looks much larger, much brighter, and very inviting. And the bedrooms with the lighter floor and the lighter curtains also, and we put some new actual lights, overhead lights in it with LED bulbs, and those bedrooms are much brighter too. This whole cabin seemed fairly dark, and it's much brighter, much more inviting. So it was a very busy weekend. So some of us worked in that cabin, others cut grass on the property. Another of my uncles, he has a big shed that had pack rats in over the winter, and they'd made a mess. So my husband and one of my brothers-in-law cleaned out the shed, and hopefully we have like a noisy rodent deterrent in there, like a squealer. That's not the word I'm looking for, but if you've heard them, they make a loud noise, a high-pitched noise, which is supposed to keep rodents out. So hopefully that works. And yeah, clean gutters, windows, swept off the roofs with all the pine needles that had come down over the winter, all this. So we gave everything a really good tidy up. One of my cousins was also there with his wife, and they got their cabin opened up, and we just had a lot of nice family time together. It was hard work. We worked nonstop for 3 days, but we each provided one of the main meals, so we get together at mealtime and felt, we were all hungry after a hard day's work, so food always tastes better up there, and always tastes better if you don't have to cook it yourself. So I had several meals that I didn't need to prepare, although I did prepare one dinner. And our evenings were at leisure. And a couple of nights we walked down to the lake. That's maybe 3/4 of a mile from our place. It's a nice little walk to have after dinner. And the weather was just, it could not have been better. It was sunny and warm, but not too hot. And so the evenings were just lovely too. We saw some deer in the yard the first day, and saw some going back and forth from town out to the cabin. There are some eagles nesting in a tree near the lake, so that was really neat. We had seen them a couple weeks ago too, and fish were jumping. We had some friends have a cabin down, well, we've gotten to know them through the years up there. They have a cabin right on the lake, so we visited with them a bit. So we have another set of friends that live down the road, and they were helping us out, lent us a utility trailer to put some things in to go to the dump, and then they came and had dinner with us one evening. They have been, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and they've just been really, really good to my mom and our family, and have become very good friends over the last few years in particular, although they've been family friends for a long time. So yeah, just a great weekend. I did not want to leave. It was so nice up there, and so, that's the one place that's been a constant my entire life. I've moved a few times, not too many times over the years, but I have moved several times. And that's a place that's always been in my life and has a deep meaning and wonderful memories. So I can't wait to get up there again. It was surprising in just 2 weeks how much had changed. The creek had gone down a bit. My aunt has what's called a marsh marigold down. She has, outside their cabin, they have some stairs leading down to the creek. So if she ever wants to get water out of the creek or something, it's easy for her to do. And she had planted these marsh marigolds there. So 2 weeks ago, they were just starting to grow again. They're perennials, so they had just started to leaf out. And this week they were blooming. So I'll put in a couple pictures of those at the end, because they're really pretty bright yellow plant right by the water. I'll put a few pictures of the lake and the eagles and, things like that. One of our big traditions up there is we like to have a wiener roast when we can, when there's no fire ban. So we did do that on Sunday, just stop for lunch and roasted hot dogs and marshmallows, and that was always fun. Hopefully we can do that again this summer, but quite often there is a fire ban as the weather warms up, so you got to get them in while you can. So that evening, that afternoon as we drove home, it was actually quite windy all the way home, and when we got home it was very windy, and I guess it was late that afternoon or early that evening. A limb off the tree next door actually blew down and came to rest right in between our two houses. Thankfully, it didn't damage either house, but tree felling company came yesterday and took the whole tree down. So that's good. I was a bit concerned about it this winter during the ice storm, because it was losing some smaller branches as it was weighted down with the ice. So it was good to see it go. I kind of feel bad that it's one less place for the birds to gather in our yards, but there's lots of trees around it, so they'll have plenty of places they can perch while they're waiting to go to the feeder. So better safe for sure than sorry. Coming up this week, my mom is going to Iceland with my sister who lives in Toronto. And so she flies to Toronto next Tuesday, the 6th. So I guess it's not next Tuesday, it's the one after. And then the two of them fly to Iceland on the 7th. But one of my brothers-in-law and his son are going up to where my mom lives this weekend for they have an annual parade and rodeo. So they're going to attend those with my mom, and then they're going to bring her back with them on Sunday. So my mom is going to stay with us at least part of the time, if not all of the time. So that it may disrupt my podcasting. If she's here, I won't podcast, but I'll see if I can, if she's away staying somewhere else for a day or two, I'll see if I can get that in. Don't know how much it'll affect my knitting. She's easy to keep. She is a crafter too, so she totally understands if I sit and knit while I talk, because she'll probably bring her knitting and do the same too. But I know she has some shopping she wants to do and things too, so, and some visiting, so I know we won't be home every day crafting or anything. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Also coming up this week is the beginning of a new 30-day health challenge by Classical Stretch or Eccentrics, which is an exercise program that I've been following for a number of years. And if you've watched my earlier podcasts, you'll know that I participated in one of these 30-day health challenges. I think it was January or February, and was very good and stuck to it. And then I fell completely off the wagon. So although I've been exercising a little more regularly lately, I see this as a really good chance to motivate me to work out every day. And so I plan to begin that and hopefully stick to it and get a little more toned up, lose a couple pounds. For summer, that would be a good thing. And other than that, I think that's about it. So we're supposed to have some gorgeous weather into next week, and I plan to enjoy that. I hope it is nice where you are, and I hope everyone is well. Thank you again so much for watching. I appreciate all the support, comments, and participation in the Ravelry group. So thank you everyone for that. And take care until the next time I podcast. Hopefully soon. Happy knitting. Bye.